Right on. Calmar Community Church,
Yes.
Whitecourt Baptist, we are part of the ABA and are wanting to be supporters of the ministries of the ABA and have this opportunity to sit down with the pastor of the church. So why don't you explain to us a little bit who you are,
okay,
and then what you're doing and
sure. Okay.
as a start.
My name is Keith Froese. I have a wife, Rachel, and we have 4 children, Angelise, Justice, Rain, and Connolly. And I have received training in the past at what was once called Edmonton Baptist Seminary. I spent some time in ministry at the Mustard Seed Street Church during that time, and then when I graduated, I was pastoring Kingman Baptist Church out in the town of Kingman. And then for about 10 years, I went into the welding trade. And while I was doing that, I was speaking in churches on Sunday mornings as they needed speakers. And I was into my 10th year of the welding. And at that time, God was really speaking to our family. We weren't exactly sure where we were going to be called to, but had a real sense that God was calling us into church ministry full time. And at that same time, Calmar Community Baptist Church was looking for a pastor, and they called us in April of 2012 to come, and I spoke several times there, and they issued a call to us some months later, and we accepted that in June 2012. June 2012 is when we started serving there in Calmar as a family, and just moved there a year later, July 2013.
So Keith, you say that, Calmar Community Baptist Church, but from our framework, we're a church of 30 years old and we have a building. Your framework is different, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how long this church has existed and what that's like?
Sure, we are in the process this year of planning, actually, the 5-year celebration of that church. Now, it hasn't always met in the building that we're in now. There was a small group that met in a home for some time, but about 3 years ago, we're able to get rental of a church building in the town of Calmar, which we still use now today, and we are renting that building on a monthly basis, paying rent each month, and we are using that building every Sunday, and I have my office in there. We can use that building for other activities. We have a lunch program for the high school students that we run in the basement of the church, and average probably about 35 youth every other day there. And we are right now in the process of determining where that direction will go for us. That building that we're in now, the owner has found a buyer for that building, and so we will be looking at somewhere else in town for us to meet. But we are actually right now almost at capacity for that building anyway, so this is certainly God's timing to move us into something else.
So is it, are you beyond what we'd say the church planting stage?
Yeah.
Your established church these days?
Yeah, I believe at this point we've moved past that. We right now are incorporated as an organization, and we are in the process of finishing our paperwork for charitable status, and when that's completed, we'll sort of officially then be a church. We have support from many different ABA churches. There's 6 churches that provide regular financial support for us. It's in their budget, and another 6 that have given us gifts of money throughout the few years that I've been there. And then there's at least another 10 churches that have given us donations of various things that we've needed as we've started. So we've really been an ABA church plant since I've been there, and we've been supported by at least 1/3 of the 65 or so ABA churches in Alberta. So really grateful for that support. And we right now are running a budget that we are ourselves meeting about 60% of our own tithing, and so the other 40% of that budget we meet by gifts and donations from other churches in the ABA.
Good. You send out a pretty regular letter that our missions an outreach team reads, and
Yes.
I've told you we have a challenging time communicating to the church effectively, and so when I had this opportunity to video and let people see you, why don't you tell us just a story or two about what's been happening at your church?
Sure. There's a number of them, but I'll stay with just two for now. About 2 years ago, I met a fellow. His name is Anthony, and he had attempted suicide in the high school in Calmar, where he attended. And he had attempted suicide, and the school called me and said he wouldn't talk to anybody but me. And in talking with him, I was given the opportunity to share a little bit with him and pray with him. And then for about a year, I prayed for him, and he started attending the church. And one Sunday after the service, he said, Keith, I need Jesus Christ in my life. And I was able to pray with him. He received Christ and was baptized and shared the gospel with his family, his entire family, mother, father, and at that time nieces that were living with him, and his one brother. All of them have been baptized and are following Jesus. And so from one boy whose life was changed, now his entire family's been changed. So that's one great story. The second story is we're right now in the middle of dealing with something in town. There's a number of youth, young girls in the high school involved in occultic type practices, and we've been able to meet. I've been able to meet with several of the families already, and actually just recently met with a mom and her daughter who is involved, and we're going to be this week actually getting together, and she's going to be taking whatever items are in her house. She's going to be burning them. We're going to renounce that. And she's repented of that, and she's received Christ, and her mom will be baptized at the end of this month.
Oh, right on.
So we're really excited. That will be our 26th baptism that we'll have had since we've been there in Calmar. So just confirming that God is doing great things in that town, and we also run, I didn't mention this, we run it's called the Open Access Youth Club. It's a youth building on Main Street, where we have regularly 20 to 25 youth that come. And again, it's a first connection, and through that, several of them have started now attending the church as well. And so we're beginning to see how God is using our little church in that town to reach out, and in particular to the youth in that town.
Those are pretty fantastic stories, and for a church that's as young as you are, and from what you've told me too, and you're telling us, a pretty significant inroad into the community. You're welcomed to the community.
Yes.
Why don't you share, I know, from the mayor's perspective and different things.
Yes, that was actually interesting when we first came to Calmar through the pastoral position, and then when we actually moved a year later and got to know people better, I was introduced to a number of opportunities to serve in the town, and so I act as the acting chaplain for the mayor of the town, and also a chaplain for the fire department in town, and the Calmar Legion had asked me to be their padre, which is also much like a chaplain position. And so I've had many opportunities, doors open for me to be involved in that community, and about 2 months ago was invited by the principal and vice principal of the elementary school, and they invited me to join them in running a boys program at the school, particularly for the troubled boys, many of them who don't have fathers at home. And so we're excited about that. We'll be starting in April of this year, in the spring, and so I'm really excited about that and the opportunity, again, just to be a Christian witness in the community. So again, many opportunities for us to be involved in interacting with the community, and in many ways being able to share the gospel of Jesus Christ.
It sounds like you're busy. There's always ministry opportunity, isn't there? And that's a reminder for us in our church too.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to wait for the Lord to bring things to us, and
Yes.
sometimes we need to take the opportunities that are there.
Yes.
Right? But I'll wrap this up. We're approaching our 10 minutes, but how could us as one of the ABA churches, what are some opportunities for us to support you guys, to pray for you, and even some of your practical needs, what might you have these days?
Yeah, right now, again, and I mentioned that earlier, we are, because we're running this youth building, it becomes a significant portion of our church budget, probably almost a third of our church budget is monies directed towards that youth building on the main street and what's all involved in that. And so wherever there has been support from ABA churches financially, we have certainly appreciated that. Of course, prayer, as I send out the newsletter every couple months, I could be a little more specific perhaps on what we need prayer for. But as we're, again, entering into this new year, that was just a realization again that we have been supported in the past and rely quite heavily on ABA church financial support. And also, just to mention as far as prayer, and I did allude to this in the one story I told, that we are entering into some very dark things in the town that is being exposed. And so we just really, as we call out to our own church and others that we know in other ABA churches, just to be praying for us in this battle that we enter into, and trust that God will bring the victory to these young people. And so that would be probably specific things I would mention as far as supporting our church in Calmar.
That's fantastic. Appreciate the opportunity, Keith. And we'll show this in our service real soon, and we'll pray for you. And
thank you.
And we'll be considering how we can practically support you guys in ministry.
Thank you.
Right on.